The area shown in red is the library block. It's to the north of the blue area, which is part of the Young Eglinton Town Center, a mixed-use area. There's a lot of pressure that comes from the mixed-use area for intensification of the library block, and the library block itself is best intensified in a comprehensive manner so that we can get the most above in terms of private development and at the same time improve the public realm below. We see on this library block that consists of 4 principal areas. There is the library in the center that runs right through from Orchard View to Hellendale as a property. To the east of this are the properties along Yonge Street. To the west are the properties along Duplex. And then another area of consideration is the actual streetscape of Orchard View Boulevard. The first step in any process, looking at the block overall, is to describe the heights in terms of the contours of development that are possible. We are subject to angular planes with residential neighborhood to the north and the west, and we see a line of 5 stories that is the edge, and then we have a 10-story contour and a 20-story contour. The contour lines are immediately above the numbers shown. And again, along Yonge Street we have the provisions for Main Street buildings. If we look at development opportunities in terms of the transitional characteristics of the lands, we see that there is the Yonge Street component and shown in red, and then we have 3 parcels in brown, the largest of which is the southwest corner where the NEOFF proposal is advancing today. Then we have another parcel along Hellendale, another one at the northwest corner, which is at Duplex and Hellendale, which is small. If we look at development potential in terms of the contour mapping we did, we see that to the east and the west of the Stanley Knowles Towers are the opportunities for the greatest height. Shown on this is the NEOFF development proposal, and it shows as well there is some possibility of something being developed between Stanley Knowles and NEOFF, in that the NEOFF is utilizing a zero lot line proposition as we see along main streets, and how this might be applied further. If we look at the tower possibilities, and these really, the height is possible along Orchard View Boulevard, and it tapers away as we saw in that contouring before. So with these NEOFF shown in red, and then providing the setback required for a tower of its size, we see in turn that on the library lands itself there's room for 1 tower, and then a further tower would be on the Main Street component. If we look at the possibility of putting 2 towers on the library property without having regard for the Stanley Knowles Tower being there already, and if we start at the left-hand end using the tall building guidelines, the blue areas represent spaces between buildings, and the towers themselves are shown in brown. We see here that it is just possible to get 2 towers on, but it has a consequence to the Main Street property to the east. Ultimately, we start to see with the available lands that the NEOFF, regardless of the existing boundaries, if that were rotated, then we could get a lesser distance to the mid tower, and again we still have a tower in the Main Street area. But what we're seeing here is actually some of this intensity belongs actually with the library property. In turn, as proposed, the NEOFF is actually trying to usurp intensity potential from the library to its own purposes without consideration. Ultimately, if we stand back from the tall building guidelines and in turn look at what is truly possible on the site, we see here the Stanley Knowles Tower could have an extension put on it, and they are looking to expand their facilities, and this could be incorporated with the red, which is the NEOFF, into some sort of a partnership type development, and again we'd have the freestanding tower to the east. That roughly paints the picture in terms of the intensity of towers. If we look at the at-ground public realm components, we see basically we have the streetscape surrounds of the whole block, and we should recognize as well the library is set up with 2 cross-block pedestrian routes running through, and there are as well courtyard spaces. One has to keep in mind here what the characteristics are of Orchard View Boulevard. And in this block that runs from Yonge through to Duplex, there are a phenomenal number of car and truck ramps, and these are shown, the truck ramps are all in black, and car ramps are in the orange. And these are dealt with in more detail elsewhere. Ultimately, looking at comprehensive redevelopment strategy for the whole of the library block, be it in parts or whatever, but if it's looked at as an entirety as to how the best solution could be, we see that the circulation to loading areas and car ramps would be best if it's organized through block with different parts spurring off of that, and especially at the east end, if we could get a back lane right through the Main Street structures there, this would allow vehicles to basically circle the block without having to adventure too far. The benefit here in terms of public realm is in recognizing that there's so much vehicular activity happening at street level, and the fact that the library is raised half a level, and in the south side the apartment buildings have a deck 1 story up that's accessible through to the mixed use behind. You could actually cover this area to increase the amount of pedestrian benefit and to separate pedestrians from vehicular functions. So again, it comes back to recognizing these 4 elements. And the important thing to look at here is the overlap between the library lands and those lands to the west and to the east. And we're seeing today with the NEON application that it is trying to do an overlap by usurping air rights from the library, although there is no consideration. And again, really key to this block is looking at Orchard View Boulevard and looking at ways that one can enhance its capability to handle cars and trucks and at the same time improve the public realm.